Welcome everyone to our 10th episode of Hunting for Suspenders and Stilettos. This is the podcast where we explore the edges of leadership.
In other words, we talk about things that might be a little bit vulnerable for us to talk about leadership.
And today we are talking about self-sabotage, and specifically self-sabotage in leadership.
And I'm John, calling in from Cambridge.
And I'm Huda, calling in from Dubai.
And I'm Sarah, I'm calling in from Toronto, Canada.
And hi, Anne, we miss you already.
Yeah. Anne's in Voriaz, I believe, in the fresh powder. I'm incredibly jealous. Skiing in the fresh powder in the Voriaz. Hi, Anne. Okay, yeah, so today we're talking about self-sabotaging leadership. And let's just start with a little definition about what we mean. So for me, this is about the idea that we all have an inner judge, an inner critic that is judging ourselves, is judging other people, is judging situations. And we also have a whole array of other voices in our heads that are trying to help us, but are often not really doing a great job, especially in our leadership. How about you, Huda? What would you add to the definition of self-sabotage?
Well, I think self-sabotage, as you so rightly said, takes many voices. It's rooted in our own personal history, right? Our deep belief, our however way we grew up and experiences we have. And I think what is really important is in the impact it has on us, but also on others and on how we behave and show up in the world. Sarah?
Great.
Yes. Just to build, I think it's you really encapsulated it, but it's the specific typical set of thoughts and behaviors that we have that don't really serve us and we say we want to do something, but then we might have a way of standing in our own way. And that can be a pattern that we notice within ourselves. And we might say, why did I do that? It went against what I actually wanted for myself. So we might sort of in retrospect, look back and judge that element or like frown upon those actions. Yet it's so habitual that it's just something that we're doing in our own lives and work, sometimes without that self-awareness until we are shining a light on it, which is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, great, thanks. I wonder if at this stage it might be to ground it, just to give one example of what that is, and we'll come back. We'll probably talk about how we do it individually. We all do. But maybe if one of you's got an example that can sort of ground it for our audience.
Sure, I can start with one, and then maybe you can build on or share one of yours. A saboteur that I have a relationship with is what's called a pleaser saboteur, which is a desire to kind of make others happy and to be a really good team player and to not rock the boat. And that's something that has been in me for my whole life since I was a young child, and in many ways has served me in terms of building relationships and just being a great person to work with and be around. And then as I evolved, as it turned into an adult and entered the workplace and started a business, and I realized that this desire to kind of please others, it was subconscious often. And I didn't even notice how that would often impact my choices. And I realized that often it wasn't allowing me to go for certain ambitions, speak my mind in certain ways, advocate for something if I knew it would hurt someone or put somebody else out, etc. So it really became something that I realized, I need to change my relationship with this pattern within myself. And I have, by the way. So
yeah, great example. So I'd love to come back to some others I'm more than happy to share, and Huda, I'd love to hear one of yours. Let's talk about why is this important that we look at this whole topic of self-sabotaging. Why is that important, especially in terms of leadership?
Well, as so rightly Sarah said, right, it prevents you from doing what, between brackets, you need to do, you want even to do. right? And the impact on others. We're not always aware of how the other people perceive us. But in leading a team or just initiating business with people, for instance, if we are held by those chains of saboteurs, we don't move, right? So how can we shift that?
Yeah. Anything you'd add to that, Sarah?
I think it's just deepening our awareness of ourselves. I think we can think in a lot of leadership development programs of leveraging our strengths. And I think that's really important. And I think as well, looking in a way that's compassionate and filled with curiosity, looking at some of the areas where we're not serving ourselves and we're not really moving in the direction we want to move in is a really important part of our self-awareness. And it just adds an extra important element of depth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really good point you're making about how these are things that have typically served us. Like being someone who pleases others when we're a kid, it's the way maybe we got love, or it's the way we got attention, it's the way that we got a sense of belonging in the world. And then we get to a point where we come up against an edge where that either no longer serves us because it has an impact on ourselves, or it no longer serves what we are up to in the world because it's not. There's a lie in that saboteur that, oh, I can achieve this thing that I want if I go out and I please others, and I lose connection with my own sense of self and my own boundaries. And there's a lie in there.
And I love something that both of you highlighted is that in each of those voices, there is a strength. There is something that is fundamentally true and that has helped us survive in certain cases, but get to where we are today, right? So, Sarah, as you so rightly said, your pleaser, saboteur, made you and you are still a very lovable person, right?
Thank you.
And I've been smiling all along because I have the other guy, right? I have a very high, or I used to have a very high, very powerful controller saboteur, which allowed me to bring this almost masculine energy in everything I did, and work in a male-dominated industry and impose myself. The impact, however, of that was that it impacted my relationship with my very dominant personality and left very little space to others to talk at times, etc. So yeah, it's I think it's a medal with two sides, right?
Yeah. You think it's almost as like greatest strength, greatest weakness?
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
What for you was the lie within the controller that's saying you must control everything because that's how you achieve the results?
Me and only me can do it. So imagine translate this into the context of a team leader or leader, right? Any leader who has 1,000 people need to get things done, right? But me and only me can do it. Yeah. Imagine the limitation of time, the clutter in my head from small things, big things, and also what do I tell other people? So if I know, it means the others don't know. Did I really think that? Did I really mean it? I don't think so. I just didn't really understand what was the impact.
Yeah, and also you're limiting the creativity of the project versus co-creating with a bunch of others.
Absolutely, there is no more. If I know there is nothing to discover, no more curiosity, right? So those were the limitations.
Yeah,
and it helped me. It helped me a lot in my past career, but I needed to understand that the limits of that. And it allowed me to take a shift, right? So I think beyond what saboteur is, or what sabotage is the capacity to gain that awareness and to shift.
Yeah. Let me. You two have shared, so I feel I'll share one of mine. So many.
Really?
I tell you, I picked this one because it's maybe a little different from the two you've got there. So as someone with a technical background, quite analytical, I've got great strengths around my ability to analyze, to dissect things, to use logic, to use rational thought. I've built a whole career on that. When that is used, this is an example of where a saboteur can be the wrong tool for the job. When logic is used to win people over, when actually the conversational is an emotional one and requires a understanding of the emotions involved, then logic, the hammer of logic, to tell someone, and I'm thinking of conversations with my wife, sorry, Lindsay, when I've done this, when the hammer of logic is used as to why I'm right, you're wrong, and why you shouldn't feel that way, that's when the hyper-rational saboteur is at play, because it's not appreciating, it's not coming from a place of empathy and appreciating what's going on for that person. It's trying to use analytical thought to either win the argument or help the other person see something that they're not seeing, but it comes from the wrong place. It's not the place, certainly not the place to start.
I really like that example, John, and what came up for me when you were describing it is this reminder that within all of us, we have a whole range of aptitudes and skills and ways of expressing ourselves, right? Like a whole range. And where I'm now seeing, based on your example, how a saboteur can come up is when we're just on autopilot. So it's like, well, this particular way has worked for me in the past, so I'm just going to continue barreling along using it without even thinking. It's just like on autopilot, doing it without kind of taking that beat, assessing what's going on, knowing sort of all of the different ways that we can express ourselves, everything that's available to us, and then choosing, well, what does this situation, what is it asking of me? Like, what's the best way for me to step forward? Whereas the saboteur is like, well, I did it this way in the past. You know, I pleased people, I made people happy in the past, or I used this logic in the past and it always worked out, or I just controlled my way through in the past. I'm just going to keep doing it without kind of noticing what the present moment is comprised of and what part of us is being called forth.
Yeah. And it's comfortable in a way because it's familiar, but it often brings, when it stops working, it brings some negative emotions. It will bring some frustration or some fear, or something will come up as a result when we're misusing our strengths or misapplying them or taking them too far, and it becomes a saboteur. There will be some consequence of that in terms of the impact on us as well as on others. How do we figure out what they are? How do we identify our saboteurs?
Well, honestly, if we take a mirror, we look very honestly at ourselves. We know deep down what is not working for us, right? So we know it when it has an impact on what we do. It has an impact on people we love. It has an impact on the way we interact with others and with the world. And I think that it can be like a red flag, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yes, we know when we hold the mirror up, but sometimes we need help with that mirror, right? Sometimes we need to, for example, solicit feedback from somebody we trust. Like, it's not always easy to look in the mirror and have that revealed to us, what's not working. Sometimes we can feel stuck. So just go, John said, well, how do we do it? I think that sometimes we need help, whether that's working with a coach or working with somebody who can help elicit that feedback and sort of pull out those insights for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking there is an assessment that we use. Maybe we'll put the link to that in the comments. So that's another way, is to, you know, a self-assessment. I think a 360 or that kind of feedback from other people is great. You know, when we look at our weaknesses or areas for development, as we like to call it, they can fit into different categories. Some are just skills we need to learn. Some is just knowledge we need to get. That's not a saboteur. That's just something we need to learn. The other things that will come back from that feedback, if the questions are right, will point us towards our saboteurs, and we'll know the difference. Yeah. So what do we do if once we've figured that out? How do we actually go about working on our saboteurs, doing the difficult bit?
But what does it take, right? I think. So as I was reflecting on this conversation, I told myself, what would it take? And one thing that came to me is really the comfort, the courage, to step out of our comfort zone. It is shaking to step out of that space where we think we know ourselves, but yet there are so many blind spots we have not uncovered, have not explored. That is for me is key, to grab that courage, give it a big hug, and travel with it through that exploration.
It does take a lot of courage to do something differently, especially when the old way has worked to whatever capacity, because you think, well, what if this other way doesn't work and I don't succeed? Or it's not successful, or people don't like me, or the results don't show what I want them to show. So it can feel scary. So you're absolutely right, having courage. And then what I would build on that is also community. So feeling like you have a community to talk to about this, who can support you, who maybe have been in your shoes, who understand the language that you're talking about right now, who can kind of go with you to these types of conversations and provide that kind of, like, normalize your experience and provide that kind of support is another C I would add. So Huda said courage, and then I'll add community.
Oh, now I have to think of something beginning with C. I will build on community, because I think that let's say the bravest of my clients will talk about this with their colleagues and say, hey, I'm working on this. Cool. And name that saboteur and name when that shows up, and actually have people support them and give them the almost in the moment, ideally in some ways, in the moment feedback. That takes a lot of courage. I think also I think the point you made, Sarah, the courage is required because it may not work initially. So it's recognizing that we do need to do something differently, and in trying to do something different, we may mess up. So we know what results we'll get if we stay in our comfort zone that's actually causing us some discomfort, but at least it's familiar. And when we try something new, we may not get the results we hope initially, and so it takes that extra amount of courage to keep going.
I'd like to add one more C, and it's compassion. It's actually compassion for ourselves.
Nice.
So if it takes courage, the results do not come immediately. We need that community to support us. The only way to come back to it, I think, is to have that self-compassion and some discipline. I think discipline is key. Come back to it again.
Adding in a D for us.
Oh, well, I'll give you a C, commitment.
So let's resume.
Commitment to change.
Yeah. What are the
sorry? Courage.
Community.
Colleagues. Was that the third?
Commitment.
No, you said so. So I started with courage. Sarah said community. You said something else.
I didn't have another C.
Oh,
let's review that, and we'll put it in the notes.
Okay, and then there is
and commitment.
Yeah, and commitment.
Encourage community and commitment.
Beautiful. All right, what's we're pretty much at time. What's one takeaway for each of you from our conversation? Something to offer the audience.
I would leave you guys with one question. What is the shift that needs to happen in you to embrace the strengths of those saboteurs? They're like those Hercules, right? Hercules is very strong, and then it gets weak at times, and Hercules overshadows everything as well with his strength. So what is the shift that needs to happen in each of us to embrace both the light and the shadow?
Thanks, Huda. How about you, Sarah?
I would normalize the experience and say it's not a problem to have saboteurs. We've all got them. Find out about yours and see what shifts you might want to make in your relationship with one of them. Take it one step at a time.
Yeah, it's totally human. And I'll just add that courage requires vulnerability. They are two sides of the same coin.
Cool.
Thanks all. Thanks for being here with us. We'll be back next month, and have a great week exploring your saboteurs. See you next time.
See ya.